What is this?
It's a Lancer.
Oh, I was almost going to say Valiant.
Yeah, they're pretty similar. The Lancer was made by Dodge, though, and the Valiant was made by Plymouth. They're basically the same car, just made by different companies.
How did you come by it?
Kind of a long story.
I just got laid off, so I have plenty of time to hear your story.
Okay, well, my grandparents owned a gas station in Bellevue, Washington in the 80s, and my dad and uncles worked at the mechanic shop. My grandpa had one rule for all of them while they worked, which was to take extra special care of all the elderly ladies who were their customers.
Cool.
So after a while they did that, my grandpa was working one day and a young guy came in and handed him a set of keys. My grandpa said, "Do you need me to service a car?" And the young guy said, "No, my mom used to come in here and you and your sons took care of her and her car, and her last wish is that you have it." And it was this Lancer.
Wow.
During that time, my mom ended up getting a job at this gas station, and that's how she met my dad. They fell in love and got married. And then after that, my two aunts got a job at this gas station. Met my two uncles. They fell in love and got married. So everybody met and fell in love at this gas station.
You gotta be kidding.
No, and all the while this Lancer is just parked out front.
It's gotta be a good luck charm.
Yeah, I would say so. But while it was sitting out front, they kept doing business at the gas station and kept taking care of the old ladies. And another lady came in and she was driving a 1970s Maverick, went to the pumps to fill up, and after filling up, tried to start her car, but nothing happened. So my grandpa and dad popped the hood and looked at the engine and realized it had blown a rod.
Oh.
And when you blow a rod, it means your engine's totaled. So they had told her the unfortunate news, and she looked at my grandpa and started to cry and said, "I was on my way to a nursing home. My husband's dementia has progressed, and I just found out I have cancer." They had a son with disabilities, and on top of that, the car broke down, and she had no idea what to do. So she started crying, and my grandpa, hearing all of this, looked at her and said, "You know what, how about let's trade?" And so he traded her this Lancer for her broken down Maverick, and she took her husband to the nursing home, and after dropping him off, she tried to come back and give this Lancer back to my grandpa, but he looked at her and said, "You keep that car, you go to your doctor's appointments, you get your groceries, that car is yours." And so she kept it.
Wow.
And during this time, I was born, so was my sister, but all of a sudden the gas station started getting broken into, and my grandparents didn't want that for their family. They wanted something safer, so they decided, even though they'd never done it before, to become farmers. They looked at 150 different farms all over the country, landed on a spot in Nebraska, but the week that they were gonna buy it, the man that owned it died. All the land was deeded to his kids, and the only other option was a farm in Terry, Montana. So my grandparents sold the gas station, bought the farm in Terry. My mom, dad, me, my sister, my aunt, and my uncle, and my grandma and grandpa moved out to this farm and started working on this farm. And a couple of years into farming, my grandpa got a call from the woman he had given this Lancer to. Before she died, she wanted the Lancer to be willed to him again. So it ended up coming out to the farm, and it sat parked inside of a barn where it sat for 15 years. And my whole life I grew up on the farm, and I grew up working there, being out in the fields with my grandparents, driving tractors, working cows. And when I was 15, I was old enough to be reading the driver's ed manual, and my grandpa saw me reading this driver's ed manual and looked at me and said, "You're gonna need a car, huh?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah." So he took me out to the barn and showed me the Lancer and said, "Have I ever told you about how your mom and dad fell in love?" And I said, "No." He looked at me again and said, "Have I ever told you about these two old ladies who willed me this car?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I think you're the third old lady to own this car." I was 15 years old. And he looked at me, said, "If you trade me your farm working hours and restore this car with me, you can have it." So that summer we worked all day in the fields, and after we were done working, we'd go to the shop and spend an hour sanding this car down. After the summer, I got the keys, and when I got it, it only had 36,000 original miles.
Wow. How many miles are on it now?
About 120,000.
Wow, sweet.
That's how I got it, and I've been driving it for the last 15 years. I'm 30 years old now.
I hope you never, ever, ever sell it.
Oh, I'm never gonna sell it. This car means too much to me. If anything, when I'm old, I'll probably give this car away just like those two old ladies did.
I think you will.
Thanks.
Yeah.